Throughout the rugged highlands and windswept coasts of Scotland stand over 350 carved stones. No one can read their symbols. The Picts carved them. They held Rome at the edge of Britain and ruled the north for centuries. They left no written histories, no laws, no epics. We don't even know what they called themselves. By the 10th century, they were gone. This is their story, how a kingdom defied Rome and vanished without conquest. Long before anyone called them Picts, Celtic-speaking peoples inhabited the lands north of the Forth and Clyde rivers. They had lived there since the Iron Age, perhaps earlier, farming fertile valleys, fishing abundant rivers, raising cattle and sheep on windswept hills. These were not primitive villagers scratching out survival on civilization's edge. Archaeological evidence reveals a complex society organized into tribes and chiefdoms, each controlling distinct territories. The landscape itself bears witness to their power. Massive hill forts crowned strategic heights across the north. Tapo Noth in Aberdeenshire, with ramparts enclosing some 17 acres of its lower slopes, ranks among the largest fortified settlements from this period in Britain. These weren't merely refugees for times of danger, they were permanent centers of authority, symbols of chiefly power, visible for miles around. Skilled craftsmen worked bronze, iron, and gold. They produced intricate jewelry, weapons, and tools. Trade goods from across Britain and beyond found their way north, proving these people were connected to wider networks of exchange. They lived in roundhouses, cultivated grain, kept livestock, and honored their dead with careful burial. But they left no written records. Their language, their songs, their stories, all transmitted orally, lost when their world changed forever. That change came marching up from the south in iron-shod boots. In 43 CE, Roman legions invaded Britain under Emperor Claudius. Within 40 years, they had conquered most of the island, but the north resisted. In the early 80s CE, the Roman governor Agricola pushed deep into Scotland with a massive expeditionary force. The northern tribes united under a war leader named Calgacus. In 83 or 84 CE, at a place called Mons Graupius, somewhere in the Scottish Highlands, they made their stand. The Roman historian Tacitus described the battle. The northerners fought fiercely, but Roman discipline prevailed. Tacitus claims 10,000 northerners died against only 360 Roman casualties. The true outcome was different. The Romans could not hold their gains. The cost of occupation, the difficulty of supply, and the persistence of resistance forced them back. Rome built walls instead. Around 122 CE, Emperor Hadrian ordered the construction of a massive barrier stretching 73 miles across northern England. 20 years later, Emperor Antoninus Pius tried again, building a second wall further north, but this wall lasted barely 2 decades before Rome retreated to Hadrian's frontier. The peoples beyond had successfully defended their independence against the greatest military power the world had ever seen. In 297 CE, a Roman orator named Eumenius first used the term Picti in a surviving text. The name means painted ones. Whether referring to tattoos, body paint, or decorated clothing remains unclear, but it stuck. From the Roman perspective, all the peoples north of the wall became Picts. The Roman withdrawal from Britain in 410 CE left a power vacuum across the island. In the chaos of the 5th and 6th centuries, new kingdoms emerged, and the Picts began to forge a distinct identity. By the 7th century, a recognizable Pictish realm dominated northern and eastern Scotland. But this was not a single unified state. The northern Picts, centered around the Moray Firth and extending to Orkney, remained distinct from the southern Picts of Perthshire, Angus, and Fife. At times, a single over-king claimed authority over both. More often, they operated independently. Medieval king lists survive, providing names and reign lengths. Names like Bride, Nechtan, Oengus, and Drest appear repeatedly, powerful dynasties competing for dominance. Succession was contested and frequently violent. The throne was a prize to be won, not simply inherited. Some evidence points to succession through the female line, unusual among early medieval kingdoms. What defined someone as Pictish? They spoke a Celtic language related to Welsh. Their material culture shows clear continuity with the Iron Age peoples who preceded them. They were not newcomers or invaders from across the sea, but the descendants of those who had always inhabited these lands. What changed was not the people, but their political organization. Walk across Scotland today and you'll encounter the Picts' most enigmatic legacy, carved standing stones bearing strange symbols. Over 200 of these monuments survive, scattered from Shetland to Fife. The earliest display uniquely Pictish symbols: crescent and V-rod, double disc and Z-rod, serpent and Z-rod, mirror and comb, swimming elephant, Pictish beast. Later stones combine these traditional symbols with prominent Christian crosses. The final type are fully Christian monuments with no Pictish symbols at all. These stones are magnificent works of art. The Hilton of Cadboll stone, originally standing over 8 feet tall, depicts a noble hunting party in exquisite detail. The Aberlemno stones include battle scenes, possibly commemorating the great Pictish victory at Nectansmere in 685. Every detail is precisely executed: weapons, clothing, animals. But what did the symbols mean? The symbols were clearly a system of communication. They appear in consistent combinations, suggesting grammatical rules. Certain symbols frequently appear together, while others never do. They meant something specific to those who carved and viewed them. Some scholars suggest they represent personal names or titles, a kind of heraldry. Others propose territorial markers or political alliances. Still others see royal genealogies. Without a Pictish Rosetta Stone, the true meaning remains lost. What we can say with certainty is that these monuments represented significant investment of resources and labor. They were meant to be seen, to communicate publicly, to endure. The symbols remain unsolved, but archaeology is finally revealing who the Picts really were. The Painted People explores the breakthroughs, the DNA revolution, the Rhynie discoveries, Kenneth's transformation, how their language died, and how they transformed into modern-day Scotland. Plus an exclusive recipe collection, stone circle porridge, chieftain's victory stew, royal honey cakes, all reconstructed from isotope analysis of actual Pictish bones, revealing what they ate. Bring ancient Scotland into your kitchen tonight. Link in the description below. Pictish history was shaped by conflict, with neighbours, with invaders, and among themselves. To the southwest, the Gaelic kingdom of Dalriata stretched across Argyll. Relations between Picts and Gaels fluctuated between alliance and enmity. To the south, the British kingdom of Alt Clut controlled lands around Dumbarton. Further south still, the powerful Anglo-Saxon kingdom of Northumbria posed the most serious external threat. In the 7th century, Northumbria was ascendant, pushing northward under aggressive kings. By the 600s and 70s, Northumbrian forces had penetrated deep into southern Pictland. Pictish independence itself seemed threatened. Then came the Battle of Nectansmere. On May 20th, 685 CE, King Bride, son of Beli, led a Pictish army against the invading Northumbrians under King Ecgfrith. Near Dunishan in Angus, the armies clashed. The Northumbrians were annihilated. King Ecgfrith himself fell in the fighting. Nectansmere stands as one of the most decisive battles in British history. It secured Pictish independence for another 150 years and permanently halted Anglo-Saxon expansion northward. For a time, the Pictish kingdom reached the height of its power. In the 8th century, King Angus, son of Fergus, emerged as the dominant figure, ruling both Picts and eventually conquering Dalriata as well. But his successors could not maintain this supremacy. A new threat was emerging from the sea. In 793 CE, Vikings sacked the monastery at Lindisfarne on the Northumbrian coast. It was a harbinger of catastrophe. Within decades, Norse raiders were striking targets across Britain and Ireland with increasing frequency. The Pictish kingdom, with its wealthy monasteries and coastal settlements, proved vulnerable. Iona was raided repeatedly. Port Mahomac was attacked and burned. Norse forces seized control of Shetland, Orkney, and the Western Isles. These weren't merely raids. Scandinavian settlers followed the warriors, establishing permanent Norse communities in the Northern Isles. Pictish culture in these regions was submerged beneath a wave of Norse language, law, and customs. Orkney became a Norse earldom. On the mainland, the impact was less dramatic but still devastating. Trade networks were disrupted, coastal monasteries were abandoned or fortified, resources that might have supported Pictish royal power were diverted to defense. The Vikings didn't destroy the Pictish kingdom directly, but they weakened it at a crucial moment, just as internal pressures and external rivalries were mounting. And into this moment of crisis stepped a king whose legacy would erase the Picts from history. Traditional accounts of Pictish history end abruptly around 843 CE. In that year, Cynaed MacAlpin, known in English as Kenneth MacAlpin, became king of both the Gaels and the Picts. Within a generation, sources stopped mentioning Pictish kings separately. The Pictish kingdom had apparently ceased to exist, absorbed into what would become the Kingdom of Alba and eventually Scotland. But how did this happen? Medieval Scottish chronicles portray Kenneth as a conqueror who treacherously slaughtered the Pictish nobility at a feast, then seized their kingdom by force. These accounts are romantic fiction written to justify Scottish royal authority. The reality was more complex. Kenneth MacAlpin was already connected to Pictish royalty through his mother. He had legitimate claims to the Pictish throne. The union may also have been a practical response to the Viking threat. Both kingdoms were under immense pressure, and merger offered strength through unity. The process was gradual, not sudden. The Pictish language continued to be spoken for generations after 843. Symbol stones with Christian crosses and Pictish symbols were still being carved into the 9th century, but it did fade. By the 10th century, Gaelic was becoming the dominant language of the new kingdom of Alba. The symbol stones were no longer being carved. Pictish personal names disappeared from records, replaced by Gaelic ones. The distinctive material culture that had marked Pictish identity for centuries was dissolving into a broader Scottish identity. The Picts ruled northern Britain for over 5 centuries. They built a powerful kingdom, created distinctive art, successfully defended their independence against Rome and Northumbria, embraced Christianity on their own terms, and ultimately merged with their neighbors to create something new. They achieved all this while leaving almost no written records in their own language. We have no Pictish literature, no histories penned by Pictish scribes, no documents explaining their laws or beliefs. What survives is material, stones and symbols, fortresses and burial grounds, jewelry and weapons. Yet from these silent remains, archaeologists and historians have reconstructed a remarkable story. The Picts were not mysterious outsiders or primitive savages. They were farmers and warriors, craftsmen and kings who shaped northern Britain during a crucial period of transformation. And the story continues to unfold. The Painted People, the complete story, the breakthroughs, the mysteries, plus that exclusive recipe collection. Experience ancient Scotland in your own kitchen. Link in the description below. Subscribe for more investigations.